Welcome to Teatime Oddities, the podcast where we explore the strange and the unusual throughout history. I'm your host Danielle, and today we will be discussing various Christmas oddities. So, pop the kettle on and grab a warm cup of tea, and let's begin. Hello everybody, welcome back to Teatime Oddities. This is the third episode of the podcast, and I'm so excited for you to join me today. I'd like to say Merry Christmas first of all, and that I hope you're all doing well. Today's episode is going to be focusing on 3 Christmas oddities. The first one is going to be chimney-related incidents, the second one is going to be shopping-related deaths, and the third one is going to be forgotten Christmas traditions. I was drinking a hot chocolate, but I finished it before I even hit record, so just imagine that I'm drinking a beverage along with you. Today's episode is probably going to be a bit longer because there are 3 different things I'm going to talk about, but hopefully it's not too long. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into it. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is chimney-related incidents. I'd like to preface this by saying saying the word chimney is starting to sound weird to me, so if I pronounce it weird, I'm sorry in advance. So most chimney-related incidents occur in the US, obviously, because people here are freaking crazy. But a lot of them don't involve people dressed as Santa or what you'd conventionally think of, like some guy coming down the chimney to surprise his family, which is actually the reason I got into this topic was because of my sister, Brooke. Thank you, Brooke. She told me about this story where a man left for a business trip on Christmas and he left his family behind. But last minute, he cancels the business trip and he wants to surprise his family by coming down the chimney dressed as Santa. But when he gets down the chimney, he becomes stuck. And since no one knows that he's home, no one thinks to look for him. And the only reason they figure out that he got stuck in the chimney is when the family starts a fire later in the evening. Obviously, really morbid and horrible story, but it's not true. I was actually... when my sister first told me this story, she also thought it was true. And I thought, it sounds plausible. So I guess it's probably true and it's horrible, but it's actually not true at all. It's an urban legend. So relief. But there are some unfortunate deaths relating to people climbing down chimneys. However, they're not that many. Most people who get caught in a chimney are actually burglars, weirdly enough. I guess they're thinking they can kind of slip in and slip out of the house. We will be first discussing Jesse Berube. Sorry if I mispronounced his name. But on December 13, 2007, Jesse, which is the one I'm just going to refer to him as from now on, Jesse became stuck in a chimney after trying to gain access to burglarize the place. I think it was a place of business. I can't quite remember. But he actually had to call 911 himself in order to get help. And the fire department freed him, and he was immediately arrested for attempted burglary. The fire department actually mentioned that he only had enough room to get his phone because he was stopped at a certain part in the chimney, but if he had been down any further, he probably would not have been able to do so. Chimneys have also been linked to many deaths in the 18th and 19th century. Unfortunately, most of these were children because chimney sweeps at that time would often send their apprentices to do the work, so sending younger children into chimneys to clean them. Most Christmas-related incidents of this getting stuck in a chimney thing were very scarce. I couldn't really find many, but one account I found was of a man in San Antonio, Texas, who was dressed as Santa for a party. This was in 1937, by the way. He went inside a chimney specifically built for the event, so it wasn't really a chimney. I think it was some type of prop, I guess. But however, once he got inside, he became stuck and could not move up or down. Many of the people at the party began to panic and tried to pull him out. And once he was freed from the chimney, the party went on as if nothing had happened. That's kind of one event of someone dressed as Santa going down a chimney, but normally it's not that, which I find is interesting because I kind of just assumed there'd be a ton of stories of man stuck in chimney dressed as Santa, but it actually is just more common for it to be either an accident or, as I said earlier, burglars. In the 1960s, an 8-year-old boy in London, England, tried to go down a chimney in an abandoned building. However, he got wedged inside about halfway down, and thankfully the fire department was able to get him out with no injuries. The boy, named Alan, reportedly said after his incident, "I can't understand it. Santa is much fatter than I am, and he never gets stuck." Well, I think that about perfectly sums it up. Ultimately, I'm just going to say, please do not go down a chimney. I don't advocate that at all, and I think it's very silly to try to replicate this. So please be safe, and let's not try to be Santa Claus, everybody, okay? The second portion of the episode is focused on Christmas shopping related deaths. The first one is in 2008, a Walmart worker in Long Island, New York was killed while unlocking store doors. Apparently there were crowds and crowds of people waiting at the entrance. They had been waiting there all night, and once him and his other employees had opened the door, the people began stampeding inside and trampled the man to death. Others were injured in this event, but mainly it was just sprained ankles and some people just kind of getting hurt. In 2012, in Tallahassee, Florida, 2 people were shot to death over a parking spot, and apparently they hadn't even gone into the store yet. Then in 2016, in San Antonio, Texas, a man named Isidro Zarate witnessed a man pulling the hair of a woman. He intervened and asked the man to let go of her. However, once he let go of her hair, he pulled out a gun and shot Zarate, killing him. I just want to remind everybody that when you're out shopping for Christmas presents or whatever you do, just be nice to other people and be careful, because you just never know. People are always kind of crazy, so just be careful. The third and final portion of the episode will be focusing on odd and forgotten Christmas traditions. The first tradition talks about fruitcake, and it was said that if you placed a piece of fruitcake, mainly one that you would get at a wedding, underneath your pillow, you were said to have a dream of who you would marry. I kind of like this one because it's just so freaking ridiculous. Like, imagine putting a piece of fruitcake underneath your pillow. First of all, if you've ever had fruitcake, it's very hard and dense, so I feel like you would probably feel it underneath your pillow. And second of all, it's just gross. Like, I know that's such a cliche to think fruitcake's disgusting, but I actually tried a piece and I was trying to keep an open mind, but it's just like all this nasty dried fruit, and the bread of it, like the cake part of it, is just not good. So don't recommend. But I mean, if that's how I know who I'm going to marry in the future, I might try it. I don't know. The second story focuses on baking items into cakes. If you've ever been to a Mardi Gras celebration, I think my French class one time had like a party. They bake a tiny little plastic baby into a cake. And like whoever finds it, I think is good luck or something like that. I'm not really sure. I don't remember. But similar to that, people would bake coins or string beans into cake, and like whoever found it would be considered like, oh, lucky, you found the string bean in your chocolate cake. Which honestly, that's kind of disgusting. I don't know why I said that. I'm so sorry. Okay, the third tradition, caroling. Caroling was actually once more similar to trick-or-treating than just singing songs to people. When this tradition was popular, it was when there was a lot of poorer people. I'm probably thinking like the Victorian era, maybe somewhere around there. Totally guessing. Couldn't find exact like years for these things. I probably could have looked harder to find it, but sorry. So caroling was more similar to trick-or-treating in the sense that you would go to your wealthy neighbors and you'd say, okay, we'll sing you a song, and afterwards you can either let us in, give us some food or drink, or we could pretty much trash your yard. Obviously not said in those types of words, but I think it was interesting how the poorer people would go around to their wealthier neighbors and pretty much threaten them for food and drink. Honestly, it's kind of cool. I like it. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it nowadays. You probably get arrested or something, but it's still funny. The fourth and final tradition is telling ghost stories. If you've ever listened to the song, It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year, you'll probably know the one line it says, "There'll be scary ghost stories and tales of the glories of Christmases long, long ago." This started in the Victorian era, and that was kind of common for people with Christmas, would be telling ghost stories. So pretty much what I'm learning from these traditions are that Halloween and Christmas are kind of interchangeable in the Victorian era, so I'm okay with that. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of Teatime Oddities. I really hope you enjoyed the episode, and please let me know down in the comments if you have any suggestions for the next episode. Without further ado, I'd like to bid you all a farewell and a good night. Thanks for listening. Make sure to keep the kettle warm, and I'll see you next month. Bye.